Upgrade Your Default Mode: How to Rewire What You Do on Autopilot. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your defaults. That sentence changed everything for me. Like most people, I thought I just needed more motivation, more focus, more discipline. But the real problem wasn't my effort, it was my autopilot. We all run on habits we didn't consciously choose. The way we wake up, how we handle stress, how we speak to ourselves, most of it is coded by repetition, not intention. And while those patterns may have served us at one point, many of them no longer do. They've become outdated software running in the background, quietly directing our lives. This book is about changing that. You're not broken. You're just running a program that needs an update. And the good news is, you don't need to overhaul your life to see big results. You just need to change the patterns you follow without thinking. That's where real transformation begins. As the philosopher Will Durant once said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. This book takes that truth seriously, but goes one step further. It's not just about building better habits. It's about upgrading the entire system that runs your default behaviors. Inside these pages, you'll learn how to spot invisible routines, understand the feedback loops that lock them in place, and gently rewire them into better ones. You'll discover how to interrupt old patterns, build micro-habits that stick, and create an environment that supports the person you want to become. But more than anything, you'll learn how to live on purpose, without constantly pushing, forcing, or burning out. This isn't a book about perfection. It's a book about alignment. About building a life that runs smoother because the inside matches the outside. About waking up each day knowing your actions reflect your values, not your impulses. If you've ever felt like you're capable of more but stuck in patterns that hold you back, you're not alone, and you're not powerless. You're one decision away from a better default. Let's upgrade. Chapter 1. Wake Up Your Autopilot. You wake up, check your phone, brush your teeth, grab your coffee, scroll a bit more, and head out the door. You didn't think through any of it. It just happened. That's your autopilot. Most people think they're making choices all day, but the truth is, most actions are automatic. Studies suggest that up to 40% of our daily behavior is driven by habit, not conscious thought. That means nearly half your life is powered by invisible scripts. Autopilot isn't the enemy. It's efficient. Your brain uses it to conserve energy. The problem starts when your default settings aren't helping you, but hurting you. If your autopilot leads you to hit snooze 3 times, procrastinate your goals, eat without intention, or avoid challenges, then it's not efficiency. It's sabotage disguised as routine. Waking up your autopilot begins with noticing it. Start by observing the first hour of your day. What do you do without thinking? Write it down. Don't judge, just document. You might find patterns you didn't even know were there. Maybe you delay important tasks until late afternoon. Maybe you snack every time you're bored. These aren't isolated decisions. They're rehearsed routines. Your brain thrives on repetition. It wires behaviors into habits through loops. The loop begins with a cue, something you see, feel, or experience. That cue triggers a behavior, which delivers a reward. Over time, your brain stops analyzing and just runs the loop. Cue, behavior, reward, repeat. That's your autopilot system. And if you don't wake it up, it'll keep driving, even off a cliff. Here's the scary part. Your autopilot doesn't care about your goals. It only cares about comfort and predictability. That's why changing behavior feels hard. You're not just trying to make a new choice. You're battling a pre-programmed response that runs faster and louder than your intentions. But here's the good news. You can rewire it. You can train your default mode to serve you. It starts with awareness. The more you notice your loops, the more power you have to change them. Think of your brain like a smart thermostat. It's always adjusting to what it thinks is normal. If you redefine normal, you reset the default. You don't need to flip your entire life overnight. You just need to interrupt one loop at a time, replace one autopilot action with a better one. Instead of grabbing your phone the moment you wake up, drink a glass of water. Instead of opening email first thing, open your notebook. Small upgrades repeated daily become the new code your brain follows. Most people never question their routines because they feel like background noise. But what's running silently is shaping everything loudly: your energy, your mood, your choices, or your outcomes. Waking up your autopilot is like turning on the lights in a room you didn't know you were living in. Suddenly you see the mess, but now you can clean it up. This book is about upgrading those invisible routines, step by step. You don't need more discipline or more motivation. You need better wiring. And that begins with one powerful realization: you're already running a program. The only question is, who wrote it? It's time to take back the keyboard. Chapter 2: Why Your Brain Loves Default Settings. Your brain is built for survival, not success. It's designed to save energy, avoid danger, and run on patterns. That's why it loves default settings. They take less effort. When you don't have to think, you can conserve energy for threats or decisions that matter more. At least that's what your brain believes. But in today's world, most threats are emails, notifications, and to-do lists, not tigers in the jungle. The average person makes over 35,000 decisions a day. If you had to consciously think through each one, you'd be exhausted by noon. So your brain installs mental shortcuts, habits, routines, and assumptions that help you move fast. These shortcuts are your default settings. They include how you start your day, how you respond to stress, how you treat others, and even how you talk to yourself. Think of your brain like a smartphone. It comes with factory settings. Over time, you install apps, customize behaviors, and allow certain permissions. Some are helpful. Others drain your battery in the background, but unless you go into your settings and audit them, they just keep running. Default settings show up in subtle ways. Maybe you always reach for sweets when you're overwhelmed. Maybe you scroll through social media when you're bored. Maybe you say yes too often, even when you're stretched thin. These aren't conscious choices. They're scripts that were installed through repetition, emotion, or social influence. Your brain learns through two powerful forces: repetition and reward. Every time a behavior gets rewarded, through comfort, relief, pleasure, or praise, it gets reinforced. Do it enough times, and your brain stops evaluating. It just repeats. This is called neural efficiency. It feels like instinct, but it's really memory. The more your brain can automate, the more capacity it saves. But here's the catch: your brain doesn't distinguish between good and bad defaults. It only cares about what's familiar and repeatable. That's why bad habits can feel so natural. They've been rehearsed more than the good ones. This efficiency is useful when your defaults align with your goals. Waking up early, eating well, exercising, focusing deeply. If these are your defaults, life feels smoother. But when your defaults are working against you, everything feels uphill. You're constantly trying to fight your own system. Upgrading your default mode means consciously choosing what your brain runs on autopilot. Instead of leaving your habits to chance, you design them. You start small. You install better responses. You train your brain to see new behaviors as the new normal. It helps to remember that your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you from overwhelm. But in doing so, it often clings to comfort, even when it's costing you progress. That's why rewiring your defaults isn't about fighting your brain, it's about teaching it something better. You don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to understand that what feels natural is often just what's been repeated the most. That means you can make anything feel natural if you repeat it enough, reward it well, and remove the friction. Your defaults are not destiny. They're just patterns, and patterns can be rewritten. The rest of this book will show you how. Chapter 3: Identify the hidden routines running your life. Before you can rewire your habits, you need to see them clearly. That means identifying the routines you've been running without thinking. These are the invisible behaviors that shape your day, and eventually, your life. They're like background apps draining your energy without you even knowing it. Start by tracking your typical day, not what you hope you do, but what actually happens. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, write it down. Where does your time go? What triggers your actions? How often do you check your phone, reach for a snack, zone out, or avoid hard tasks? The point isn't to shame yourself, it's to surface the code your brain is quietly executing. Look closely at the moments between moments. What do you do when you're bored? What happens when you're stressed? What's your first reaction to a notification, an email, or a difficult conversation? These micro moments are often packed with powerful routines. You just haven't noticed them. One trick to uncover hidden habits is to look for loops. Every habit follows a pattern: cue, behavior, reward. For example, a notification pings cue, you check your phone, behavior, and feel a burst of stimulation, reward. Or maybe you feel anxious, cue, you scroll, social media, behavior, and escape your thoughts for a minute, reward. Once you recognize the loop, you can begin to change it. These loops are everywhere. They're how you handle mornings, meetings, meals, and moods. But the loops don't just influence what you do, they shape how you think and feel. If your routine says, delay difficult tasks until you're overwhelmed, that becomes your mode. If your default is, eat to cope with stress, your health gets coded by emotion. Awareness is power. Once you can see the script, you can rewrite it. But you have to be honest. Many routines hide behind good intentions. You might say, I'm checking email to stay productive, but really you're avoiding the hard thing. Or, I relax with TV at night, but it's actually numbing you from dissatisfaction. To find these patterns, ask yourself a few revealing questions. What are 3 things I do daily that I barely think about? What behaviors show up when I'm stressed, bored, or tired? When do I feel the most out of control in my day? Which routines give me energy? Which drain it? You might notice some behaviors that feel small but happen often. Maybe you snack after every Zoom call. Maybe you criticize yourself every time you open your calendar. These tiny routines, repeated daily, compound over time. They become your mental architecture. Don't try to fix everything at once. Just notice, track, label. When you give a behavior a name, you take its power away. There's my afternoon scroll spiral. Here's my snack stress loop. Naming the routine turns the unconscious into the conscious. That's the first step to change. Your life is a reflection of the habits you've repeated, not the ones you wish you had. The goal is to make the invisible visible, because you can't change what you don't see. And once you see it, you're no longer stuck, you're in the driver's seat. Chapter 4: The Cue Behavior Reward Feedback Loop. Every habit you have, good or bad, follows the same script. It begins with a cue, leads to a behavior, and ends with a reward. This is the loop your brain uses to build and reinforce patterns. Once you understand how this loop works, you can start to take control of it. You can interrupt bad habits and install better ones. Let's break it down. The cue is the trigger. It can be external, like a notification, a time of day, or seeing someone else do something. It can also be internal, like a feeling, stress, boredom, hunger, or loneliness. Your brain notices the cue and thinks, this means it's time for something. Then comes the behavior, the action you take. This could be checking your phone, reaching for a snack, avoiding a task, or getting a glass of water. It's the visible part of the habit, the part others can observe. But what matters most is what happens next. That's where the reward comes in. The reward is what your brain gets from doing the behavior. It might be pleasure, relief, escape, stimulation, or just a sense of completion. Whatever it is, your brain files that result away. If the reward feels good enough, it increases the odds that you'll do the behavior again next time the cue appears. Over time, the loop gets tighter. The cue doesn't just lead to behavior, it starts to predict the reward. Your brain begins craving the reward the moment it sees the cue. That's when the habit becomes automatic. You don't think, you just respond. Let's say you always scroll social media when you're bored. Boredom is the cue. Scrolling is the behavior. The reward is distraction or entertainment. Repeat that enough times and now boredom automatically triggers the scroll, whether you want it to or not. Your brain has locked in the loop. Here's the powerful part. Once you can identify the cue and the reward, you can change the behavior in the middle. You don't have to break the whole loop. You just need to reroute it. Suppose your cue is stress and your current behavior is snacking. If the reward is relief, then you can ask, what's another behavior that gives me relief, but serves me better? Maybe it's a walk, a deep breath, or journaling for 2 minutes. Swap the behavior, keep the cue and reward, and over time, you've rewired the loop. This is how you upgrade your default mode. You don't fight your brain's wiring, you work with it. You keep the structure and change the content. You trick the system into working for you. But here's a warning, cues are everywhere, and some are sneaky. The smell of popcorn might trigger a craving. A certain room might signal bedtime, or binge watching. That's why awareness is key. The more you notice what sets you off, the more control you have. And rewards aren't always obvious. Sometimes the reward isn't pleasure, it's escape, or control, or a sense of being needed. That's why you have to dig. Ask yourself, what am I really getting from this? When you know the real reward, you can replace the behavior without losing what your brain's actually after. The cue behavior reward loop is your operating system. It's not your enemy, it's your edge. Once you learn to hack it, you can install better habits, delete unhelpful ones, and start programming the life you actually want. That's where we're headed next. Chapter 5: How to Interrupt a Bad Pattern. Bad habits don't break themselves. They run on autopilot until something stops them. That something is your awareness and intention. The moment you pause a habit mid-loop, you create space, and in that space you get power. You can choose a new response instead of repeating the old one. The first step to interrupting a bad pattern is catching it in motion. That means recognizing the moment when the cue hits, before the behavior kicks in. It's like seeing a match spark before it hits the fuse. Most people only notice their bad habit after the fact. I can't believe I ate all that. Why did I scroll for an hour? But if you catch it just before, or as it starts, you can change it. Try this when you notice a habit coming on. Say it out loud or write it down. I'm about to stress eat. I'm reaching for my phone again. This simple act brings the behavior into consciousness, and that changes everything. Habits thrive in the shadows. Shine a light, and they weaken. Another way to interrupt the loop is to create friction, make the behavior harder to do. If you always check your phone in bed, move it across the room. If you scroll social media at work, log out after each session. If snacks are your autopilot, don't keep them in arm's reach. Every extra step adds resistance, and resistance breaks rhythm. But friction alone isn't enough. You also need to replace the behavior. Your brain doesn't like empty space. If you remove a habit without filling the gap, the old pattern rushes back in. So ask yourself, what can I do instead that gives me a similar reward? That's the golden question. You're not just stopping, you're substituting. Let's say you always procrastinate by cleaning or organizing. The cue is overwhelm. The reward is feeling in control. What's another way to get that same reward? Maybe it's breaking your task into micro steps. Maybe it's 5 minutes of journaling. If you find a swap that gives you the same emotional payoff, your brain will start to accept the new path. Sometimes the interruption needs to be physical. Get up, move, change rooms, go outside. Movement shifts your state. It sends a signal, we're not doing that old thing right now. Even a 10-second break can reset the circuit. That's all you need to keep the pattern from locking in. Here's another tactic. Use a pattern interrupt phrase. Create a short sentence you say every time you catch the habit starting. Something like "not this time" or "I'm choosing better." It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just needs to break the trance. Think of it as your mental pause button. And finally, forgive the slip-ups. You won't interrupt every pattern perfectly. Sometimes you'll catch it too late. That's okay. The point isn't perfection. It's awareness. Each time you notice, you're training your brain, you're rewiring its sense of normal. That's real progress, even if the behavior still happens. Bad patterns feel powerful because they're fast and familiar, but they're not permanent. The moment you interrupt one, you slow it down, you bring it into the light. And once you can see it, you can change it. You're not breaking the habit. You're breaking its grip. Chapter 6: Replacing Old Defaults with Better Ones. It's not enough to remove a bad habit, you have to replace it. Nature hates a vacuum, and so does your brain. If you leave a gap where an old habit used to be, your mind will rush to fill it with whatever's most familiar. And that usually means the same old behavior you were trying to escape. That's why habit change is not subtraction, it's substitution. You're not just deleting code, you're writing better code over it. Think of your habits like footpaths in a field. The more you walk a path, the deeper and clearer it becomes. If you suddenly stop walking it, weeds will take over. But if you walk a new path daily, intentionally, it eventually becomes your go-to. Same terrain. New direction. So how do you replace an old default with something better? Start by knowing what the original habit gave you. What was the emotional or mental reward? Comfort? Stimulation? Control? Escape? Don't replace a habit with something random, replace it with something that meets the same need in a better way. If stress made you snack, what else can calm you? If boredom made you scroll, what else can stimulate your mind? The new behavior doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be better. 1% better is enough to shift the loop. Instead of crashing on the couch and zoning out, maybe you stretch for 5 minutes. Instead of venting through complaints, you write down what you can control. These swaps seem small, but they start building a new pattern. Make the new habit easy, really easy. The easier it is, the more likely your brain will accept it as a default. If it takes too much thought or effort, the old habit will sneak back in. Convenience beats motivation, always. Also, link the new habit to the same cue. If the cue is I finish work, and the old habit was grab a drink, then use that same cue to trigger a new habit. I text a friend, or I go for a quick walk. The cue stays the same. The behavior changes, the loop gets rewired. And here's the key: reward the new habit, reinforce it, celebrate it. Even if it feels awkward or small, your brain needs a reason to keep doing it. If the reward isn't obvious, make it so. Track it, check it off, smile, say something positive. It doesn't have to be flashy, it just has to feel good enough to repeat. You'll know a new habit is working when it starts to feel automatic. That's a sign it's being installed. But be patient. New paths take time. Old defaults have years of repetition behind them. New ones need consistency. Miss a day? That's fine. Don't miss 2. It also helps to stack your new habit next to something stable. This is called habit stacking. If you already brush your teeth at night, tack on I stretch for 30 seconds after brushing. If you already drink coffee in the morning, stack review my goals right after. Your brain likes predictability. Use that to your advantage. Replacing an old default isn't about flipping a switch. It's about laying new tracks, slowly, steadily, until they feel like home. The more you walk the new path, the less tempting the old one becomes, not because you forced it, but because you upgraded it, and eventually, what once felt like effort becomes your new normal. Chapter 7: Installing Micro-Habits That Stick. Big goals fail when the steps are too big. Motivation fades, energy dips, and life gets in the way. That's why the smartest way to change your default behavior is to go small. Micro-habits, tiny, easy actions, are the secret to sustainable change. They're so simple they feel almost silly. But that's the point. They're too small to fail. A micro-habit is the smallest possible version of a new behavior. Not run 3 miles but put on your running shoes. Not meditate for 20 minutes but sit quietly for 1 breath. Not write a chapter but open the document. These tiny steps bypass resistance. They don't trigger overwhelm. And once you start, momentum does the rest. Think of micro-habits like seeds. You're not trying to grow a forest overnight. You're just planting something so small, it can take root without effort. Once planted, it grows naturally, with sunlight, water, and time. Your job isn't to force it. Your job is to keep showing up and let it grow. The magic of micro-habits is in their consistency. Done daily, they create a rhythm. That rhythm rewires your brain to expect the behavior. It stops being new and starts being normal. And once something feels normal, it becomes your default mode. Here's how to build a micro-habit that sticks. 1. Make it ridiculously easy. If it takes more than 30 seconds or requires a decision, shrink it. Do 1 push-up. Write 1 sentence. Drink 1 sip of water. Your brain loves wins. Give it 1 it can't lose. 2. Tie it to a cue you already follow. After you brush your teeth. After you make coffee. After you check your calendar. That anchor turns your micro-habit into a reliable part of your day. 3. Track it visually. Use a calendar, an app, or even a sticky note. Check off each day. Seeing the streak builds pride. It also builds pressure, not to be perfect, but to stay consistent. 4. Celebrate immediately. Smile. Say yes. Do a fist pump. Your brain associates emotion with memory. Positive emotion after a micro-habit locks it in. 5. Let the habit be enough. Don't treat the micro-habit as a trick to do more. If you walk for 1 minute and stop, that's a win. If you write 1 sentence and quit, that counts. Anything beyond that is bonus, not required. Micro-habits also have a secret power. They lower the emotional cost of starting. Most people fail not because the task is hard, but because starting feels heavy. Micro habits erase that weight. Starting becomes so easy, you almost can't say no. And here's the kicker: micro habits often lead to macro results. One push-up becomes 5. One sentence becomes a page. One sip becomes a healthy routine. But the moment you make that growth a rule, the habit becomes pressure again. Keep it small. Let it grow. If you ever miss a day, forgive fast and restart immediately. Micro habits work because they're designed to survive imperfection. The win isn't never missing, it's always coming back. You don't need to change everything today. You just need a seed you'll actually plant. And you need to plant it daily. That's how you build a life that runs on better autopilot, not through force, but through frictionless repetition. Because when something small feels easy, it sticks, and what sticks, rewires. Chapter 8. Make your environment work for you. Your habits don't happen in a vacuum. They happen in a space. And that space, your environment, either supports your success or sabotages it. If you want to upgrade your default behaviors, you can't rely on willpower alone. You have to design your surroundings to make the good stuff easy and the bad stuff hard. Environment is the silent coach that's always shaping your behavior. Without saying a word, it nudges your choices, triggers your routines, and reinforces your patterns. A cluttered desk encourages distraction. A fridge full of soda invites impulse. A visible yoga mat can prompt movement. These aren't accidents, they're design cues. The most powerful change isn't always internal. It's external. If your space constantly tempts you to default to old habits, you'll burn energy resisting. But if your space invites better actions, you don't have to fight, it flows. Start by doing an environment audit. Walk through your home, your workspace, your car, even your phone. Ask, what behaviors does this space promote? What defaults does it reinforce? You might be shocked at how many unintentional signals are steering your life. For example, if your phone is your alarm clock, the first thing you touch every morning is likely a distraction. Solution? Use a real alarm clock and leave your phone across the room. If junk food is visible on your counter, you're more likely to grab it. Solution? Move it out of sight, or don't bring it home. Create friction for bad habits. Make them inconvenient. If you want to watch less TV, unplug it after each use. Want to stop scrolling in bed? Put your phone in another room at night. These small barriers make it easier to pause and harder to default. At the same time, reduce friction for good habits. If you want to work out in the morning, lay out your clothes the night before. Want to read more? Put your book on your pillow. Want to eat better? Prep healthy snacks at eye level. Make the right thing the easy thing. Visual cues are powerful. Your brain responds to what it sees, not just what it thinks. That's why out of sight, out of mind works both ways. If you want a habit to stick, make the cue obvious. If you want to kill a habit, hide the trigger. You can also design zones of behavior, create specific spaces for specific actions. One chair for reading. One desk for focused work. One spot for quiet reflection. When your brain associates a space with a task, it becomes easier to slip into the right mode. Even in small homes or tight spaces, the intention matters more than the square footage. Your digital environment matters too. If your desktop is chaos, clean it up. If social media is a constant pull, log out or limit your feed. Curate your inputs the same way you would declutter a room, because what enters your brain shapes what exits. Finally, enlist people in your environment. Habits are contagious. If your circle encourages better defaults, you'll adopt them faster. If they constantly tempt you into old patterns, the climb gets steeper. You don't have to cut people off, but you do need boundaries and support. In the end, your environment either props up your autopilot or pulls it down. Don't leave that power to chance. You can build a space that makes good choices obvious and easy. One where better habits don't feel like effort, but like the natural thing to do. Upgrade your space, and you upgrade yourself. Chapter 9. Use identity to lock in new defaults. The most powerful force behind your habits isn't motivation, it's identity. When you see yourself a certain way, you act accordingly. Your behavior flows from who you believe you are. So if you want to upgrade your default mode, start by upgrading your self-image. Habits aren't just actions. They're votes for the kind of person you believe yourself to be. Every time you go for a walk, you're voting for I'm a healthy person. Every time you write, you're saying, I'm a writer. These votes add up. Eventually, they build a belief, and beliefs drive everything. If you've ever said, I'm just not a morning person, or I always mess this up, you've experienced the pull of identity. It locks in behavior. You act in ways that match your internal story, even when it hurts you. That's why willpower alone doesn't work. It's trying to override the story with force. To shift your habits long term, start with this question: who do I want to become? Don't focus on outcomes. Focus on identity. Instead of I want to lose 20 pounds, say, I want to be someone who treats my body with respect. Instead of I want to be more productive, say, I want to be someone who follows through. Once you define that identity, begin acting as if it's already true. Not in a fake it till you make it way, but in a micro-proof kind of way. Take small actions that reinforce the identity. Do what that kind of person would do. Bit by bit, you become it. The key is consistency. Identity doesn't shift overnight. It shifts through repeated evidence. One workout doesn't make you fit, but it proves you're the kind of person who moves. One act of kindness doesn't make you generous, but it proves that value is part of you. Here's a practical tip: write down your new identity and keep it visible. Something like I'm someone who keeps promises to myself, or I'm someone who finishes what I start. This isn't fluff. It's mental reprogramming. Your brain looks for cues to confirm what it believes. Help it believe the right thing. You can also use identity to break bad habits. Ask, what kind of person wouldn't do this? If you want to quit smoking, think, a healthy person wouldn't reach for a cigarette right now. If you want to stop procrastinating, remind yourself, I'm someone who handles things directly. The shift isn't just behavioral, it's personal. Identity becomes a filter. When you know who you are, decisions get easier. You don't debate whether to work out, you're the kind of person who moves. You don't question if you'll journal, you're someone who reflects. The internal story removes friction from the external action. But don't expect perfection. Your identity will get tested. You'll have days where you don't act like your best self. That doesn't erase who you are. It just means you're human. What matters is getting back to the behavior that aligns with your belief. You're not trying to create a fake version of you. You're uncovering the better version that's already there. The you who makes choices with intention, who doesn't live on autopilot, who shows up daily, even in small ways, for the life you want. Habits change when your identity changes, and identity changes when you prove it to yourself, over and over again. Chapter 10: Overcoming Resistance and Slipping Back. Every change meets resistance. It's part of the process. Just when your new habits start to click, the old ones whisper, come back, this is easier. You'll feel friction, you'll face setbacks. And at some point you'll slip, not because you're weak, but because you're human. Slipping back doesn't mean you failed. It means the default mode you're replacing is still lurking in your system. Habits are sticky because they're familiar. They've been rehearsed thousands of times. Even as you build better ones, the old loops wait for a chance to reappear. The key isn't to never fall. The key is to fall forward. That means when you mess up, you use it as data, not a reason to quit. Ask, what triggered the slip? What was I feeling? What was missing in that moment? This isn't about guilt. It's about information. One powerful tool to manage resistance is pre-deciding. Decide in advance what you'll do when things get hard. Write a when, then plan. When I feel like skipping my workout, then I'll go for a 5-minute walk instead. When I crave junk food, then I'll drink water and wait 10 minutes. These tiny strategies create space between impulse and action. Another way to reduce resistance is to simplify. If a habit feels hard, shrink it. Go back to the micro version. You don't need to read a whole chapter, just read one sentence. You don't need to cook a perfect meal, just eat something nourishing. Forward motion matters more than intensity. And expect resistance, and it won't shock you. Your brain craves comfort, especially under stress. That's why old defaults are so seductive. They promise ease, even when they cost you long term. The antidote isn't shame, it's strategy. Build buffers into your life. Stack your habits with accountability. Tell a friend. Join a group. Set a reminder. Even posting a sticky note can shift your energy. Don't try to carry all your habits in your head. External support keeps internal motivation alive. And when you do slip, which you will, respond with compassion. Speak to yourself like you would a friend. This isn't who you are, it's just what happened. Let's reset. One bad day doesn't erase progress. One misstep doesn't cancel your identity. The danger isn't the fall, it's staying down. In fact, slips are a sign that change is happening. You're pushing against your limits. You're leaving comfort for growth. That's messy. That's normal. What matters is the bounce back. How fast can you return to your path? Here's a mindset shift. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for consistency. Don't track flawless days. Track comeback days. The people who succeed at habit change aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail and return faster every time. Use setbacks to strengthen your system. If you always slip in the same context, late nights, stress, weekends, build your plan around that. Make it friction-proof. Every challenge becomes a chance to upgrade your habit design. You're not breaking down. You're breaking through. When resistance shows up, greet it like an old opponent. You know its moves now. And every time you rise again, you prove something deeper than discipline. You prove commitment. Keep going. Your defaults are shifting, even when it's hard to see. Chapter 11. Automate your wins. The most powerful habits are the ones you don't have to think about. They just happen, on time, every time. That's what it means to automate your wins. You take the behaviors that move you forward and lock them into your system so deeply, they run without resistance. Automation means setting up your life so the right actions happen by default. It's the opposite of relying on motivation. Motivation is fragile. It fluctuates with your mood, energy, and environment. Automation removes the decision. No debate, no drain. Just action. The simplest form of automation is routine. If you do something at the same time, in the same way, every day, your brain stops questioning it. It shifts from should I to this is just what I do. That's the goal. Make success feel normal. But routines can fade under pressure. That's why systems are even stronger. A system is a structure that supports your behavior regardless of how you feel. It's what professional athletes, CEOs, and creators rely on. Not inspiration, just structure. For example, if you want to eat healthy, a system isn't just try to eat better. It's meal prepping on Sundays. It's shopping with a list. It's keeping junk food out of your house. These are environmental and structural supports. They reduce decision fatigue and remove temptation. Automation also means using tools to your advantage. Calendar reminders, task managers, auto payments. Block time for workouts or writing. If something matters, automate it. Don't leave it up to willpower. Put it on rails. Another powerful strategy is habit batching. Group similar habits into a single session or space. For example, do all your deep work in one block. Handle all errands on one day. Batch creates rhythm, and rhythm builds momentum. You can even automate mindset. Create morning prompts or reflection rituals. Start your day with the same mental tune-up, gratitude, goals, or grounding thoughts. Your thoughts shape your actions. Automate the inputs, and the outputs get better. Accountability can be automated too. Schedule regular check-ins with a coach, a friend, or even just yourself. Track your progress visually. Use a habit tracker or a wall calendar. Seeing the streak builds identity and keeps your brain invested. Here's the secret: the more you automate, the more energy you free up. Energy that used to go into battling your bad habits can now fuel growth. Instead of spending willpower on avoiding things, you invest it in creating better things. Automation is also your safety net. On days when motivation crashes, your system still holds. You might not feel like working out, but if your clothes are ready, your playlist is queued, and your friend is meeting you, it happens anyway. That's not discipline. That's design. Some people worry automation will make life dull. But the opposite is true. It makes space for freedom. When the essentials are locked in, your mind is free to create, explore, and connect. You're not weighed down by 100 micro decisions. Automate your wins, and your default mode becomes productive, healthy, and aligned, without strain. This is how you build a system you can trust. Chapter 12. Living on purpose without the struggle. You don't need a battle plan to live a meaningful life. You need a blueprint that flows with who you are and where you want to go. Living on purpose doesn't have to feel like a fight. In fact, the more aligned your habits are with your values, the less struggle there is. You stop forcing. You start flowing. Most people chase results. They want the weight loss, the promotion, the peace of mind, but real transformation doesn't come from chasing outcomes. It comes from upgrading your defaults. When your automatic behaviors align with your purpose, your life begins to reflect your intention, even on the hard days. Living on purpose means doing what matters most often, not perfectly, just consistently, and consistency comes from design, not pressure. You don't have to wake up every morning hyped and ready to conquer the world. You just need a system that keeps you anchored, even when motivation disappears. Here's what that looks like. Your mornings start with a few small rituals that ground you. Your work is guided by clear priorities, not just busyness. Your breaks renew you. Your space supports you. Your habits reflect who you want to be, not just who you've been. It feels stable, centered, less chaotic. Not because life stops being messy, but because you're no longer reacting to it on autopilot. You've written new code, installed better patterns, and now your day flows from a place of clarity. You still have goals, of course, but they're no longer the only focus. Now you care about the process, about becoming someone who shows up with consistency, not intensity, someone who keeps promises to themselves, someone who acts with intention even in small things. That's what purpose really is. It's not a grand mission statement carved in stone. It's the daily expression of your values in action. It's living as the kind of person you admire, one small choice at a time. When your default mode is healthy, intentional, and aligned, struggle becomes optional. Effort doesn't go away, but it stops feeling like a grind. You trust yourself. You're no longer wrestling with your own systems. You're supported by them. Gasse. Of course, the work is never done. Your environment will shift. Your seasons will change. You'll fall off and come back. But now you know how to recalibrate. You know how to find the loop, adjust the cue, redesign the habit, and restart with grace. Living on purpose without the struggle isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters, automatically. And that's a skill you've been building throughout this book. You've learned how to spot hidden routines, reroute bad habits, and replace them with better ones. You've installed micro wins, designed your environment, and aligned your identity. Now it's time to live it. Not perfectly, not forcefully, just deliberately. Because when the best version of you becomes your default, your life becomes the result. Take care and be well.